a couple of questions on work that the RBA is doing around rents and any projections you might have. So, prices across the economy, the growth in prices across the economy is coming down, except that inflation is still above your target band. Rents look like they're staying quite stubbornly high at the moment. Do you project your expected changes in rents? And if you do, what's your projection over the next 12 and 24 months, and when do you expect rental CPI to peak?
I think our rental CPI is peaking, we think around about 10%-ish. And I think we're thinking that's going to happen in the next quarter or two, roughly. Yeah. What's driving that is, I guess, evidence that we're observing on what's happening with advertised rents. So advertised rents feeds with a lag into, and we've got a graph here. Is this in the statement on monetary policy? Graph 2.24 gives you a bit of a flavour for what rents have been doing, and there is an indication that advertised rents growth has peaked, and we would expect that to flow through to the CPI rents.
Thank you. You've obviously got a business liaison program, so you regularly engage with the corporate community to understand their concerns and to heed their views. I've raised this before, but how do you get the perspectives of people renting? How do you? I understand a few of them might drop you a letter from time to time, but my assumption would be that most or all of the board are homeowners or property investors. I mean, how do you get the perspectives of a third of the population of Australia who aren't property owners?
So the renters, there's a number of ways that we get it. I get lots of letters from both homeowners and renters. The other way we get it is that the business liaison program doesn't only speak with businesses, it also speaks with organisations that, like ACOS, for example, like Beyond Blue, the sorts of messages that they're getting from the people that they deal with. The business liaison program does that. I also meet with them personally myself, the heads of those sorts of organisations as well, so we get a bit of a perspective from them as well. So they're the main mechanisms through which we get that intelligence.
All right, thanks. Do organisations like ACOS the corporate community and other organisations, what they get is access, whereas perhaps, in fact it is fair to say that ordinary Australians don't get that level of access to the RBA. Do people like ACOS and other groups who represent, I hope, sections of the community, do they raise with you rental stress that people are under?
Yes, they do.
They do. All right. And do you acknowledge that when you put up interest rates, ultimately that is one of the factors that leads to upward pressure on rents?
Well, it can, but the fundamental issue with rents at the moment is supply and demand. That's the first order issue.
Yeah. So just on that, Saul Eslake said once, anything that allows people to spend more on housing than they otherwise would has one effect and one effect only, and that is that people spend more money on housing than they otherwise would. Do you agree with that?
It's a rather odd way of putting it. What I would say is that Australians, as a group, we do value housing, and people are willing to put money into housing, and obviously the banks are very, very focused on housing. That is their business model.
Okay. Well, at the moment you've got government policy settings like negative gearing, the capital gains tax discount, the help to buy. lottery scheme that is currently before the Parliament, would you accept that they all add to aggregate demand in the housing sector and therefore put upward pressure on house prices?
If you're talking in a cyclical sense about the moment, I think that's those settings are not changing. So they're not doing anything in a cyclical sense at the moment. Whether or not
Help to Buy will be a change.
Help to Buy,
if it's legislated, which is uncertain at the moment.
And you know, one of the things that has often been said about a lot of programs of housing is that if you give people more money, you will bid up the price if supply doesn't respond. So you've got to have a response from supply. If you just simply add to demand by giving more people more money to spend on housing and the supply doesn't respond, then by definition the prices will go up because demand will go up.
Apologies. Last question, Senator McKim.
Thank you. But again, I understand your response in terms of the cyclical nature of these things. But perhaps I could put the question another way. If we didn't have the capital gearing, the negative gearing tax policy setting that we do, if we didn't have the capital gains tax concessions that we currently do, and if Help to Buy doesn't happen, all of those things would act to actually reduce demand and therefore cool off housing prices, wouldn't they?
I actually don't know the answer to that, Senator, because I think it's much more complex than that. The first order issue is supply versus demand, and we know
but that's the context of my question.
Thank you.
That's the context of my question.
Supply.
Thank you.
I understand, but
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor.